Nestled in Perry County, Kentucky, there once stood a racetrack that embodied the spirit of grassroots motorsports, the Perry County Speedway, affectionately known as the Little Diamond of the South, was more than just a venue. It was a community gathering place and a proving ground for drivers, and a cherished tradition for fans. So what went wrong and what caused it to close? I'm going to be exploring that today. Established in the early 1970s, the Perry County Speedway quickly became a staple in the southeast dirt track racing scene. The 1/2 mile banked clay oval provided thrilling side-by-side racing that attracted both regional talent and national attention. Over the years, the track hosted a variety of racing divisions, including crate late models, super streets, renegades, and U-cars, among many others. Events like the Carolina Clash Super Late Model Series brought top-tier competition, solidifying the Speedway's reputation as a premier racing destination. A former driver would state, racing at Perry County was like no other. The track was challenging, the fans were passionate, and the atmosphere was electric. It felt like home. A local fan would say, we'd pack the stands every weekend. It wasn't just about the races, it was about the community coming together. For decades, the Perry County Speedway was a hub of excitement and camaraderie. Families spent their Saturdays at the track, sharing in the thrills and spills of dirt track racing. The sounds of roaring engines and the sight of flying red clay became synonymous with southern nights and hazard. However, like many small-town venues, Perry County Speedway faced challenges in its later years. Declining attendance, rising operational costs, and the evolving landscape of motorsports led to its closure in 2004. The once vibrant track fell silent, leaving behind a legacy cherished by those who experienced its glory days. But what kind of stuff could go into a racetrack closing? Well, I'm going to explore that. One reason, like I said before, is rising operating costs. Insurance, track maintenance, lighting, staffing, safety equipment have all become more expensive. They obviously need ambulances, they need safety trucks, they need fire extinguishers, they need to pay people to be able to be trained on how to use that stuff and to use their time to help out at the racetrack. And obviously that can be very expensive. Also, a decline in sponsorship. Local businesses that used to support tracks through sponsorships have either cut back or closed, and national sponsors are increasingly focused on larger events or even digital advertising, such as advertising on Flow Racing, or spending their dollars on a place like Eldora Speedway or Knoxville Speedway, something that will get national attention instead of just your local attention. Another reason is declining driver attendance. As a lot of people know, if you are in the dirt racing scene, race cars are very expensive. You can see UMP modifieds going anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000. Late models, super late models, going for anywhere between $25,000 and $70,000. Sprint cars with an average cost of around $40,000 to $70,000. Even a street stock is around $10,000 to $15,000. And a really good four-cylinder that you can compete with is going to run you about $4,000 to $9,000 on an entry class. So you're kind of sensing the problem. Perry County Speedway may never be forgotten. It may not be etched into the landscape, but its legacy endures in the stories shared by those who raced there, cheered from the stands, and called it home. The Little Diamond of the South may have dimmed, but its brilliance will never fade from the heart of those who experienced its magic. Beneath this modern complex in Sydney's Moore Park lies the ghost of a giant, a speedway that once drew tens of thousands every Saturday night from 1926 to 1996. The Sydney Showground Speedway, known as the Speedway Royale, was the beating heart of Australian motorsports. Built within the grounds of the Royal Agriculture Society Showground, the Speedway began life in 1926. On July 21st, the first event featured solo motorcycles, and by the end of that year, the program had expanded to include sidecars and speed cars, known internationally as midgets, but always speed cars in Australia. In 1937, the Showground promoters boldly claimed the track to be the fastest speedway in the world. The egg-shaped circuit measured 509 meters, about 557 yards, and it was infamous for its high speeds, tight corners. Spectacular crashes were common, so too tragically were fatalities. The track had a dolomite surface, which riders and drivers consistently criticized for its lack of grip. They pleaded with the Royal Agricultural Society to mix in shale and clay, as well it has been done on British tracks like Wembley. But the Society refused, citing its use as a harness racing venue, a justification that became obsolete when the trots moved to Harold Park in the late 1940s. The track was also very narrow. Unlike speedways that allowed 3 cars wide through the turns, the Showground often barely accommodated 2, a factor which added the tension and danger to every lap, which is why crashes were very common here. The pit grounds, located under the Martin and Angus stand, and the southern end were a character of all their own. Smoke, oil, petrol, and the occasional burst of profanity filled the air. Rex Mossop, a dual-code Rugby International and part-time Speedway announcer, called them Danito's Inferno. Although today it's remembered for its speed cars, the Showground was first and foremost a motorcycle track. From the late 1920s to the 1950s, it hosted the Australian Solo and Sidecar Championships and high-profile international test matches. The first, on December 15, 1934, saw Australia defeat Great Britain 35-19 in front of 50,000 fans. In 1933, the venue hosted the unofficial Speedway World Championship. England's Harry Whitfield won, edging out Australians Billy Lamont and the future world champion Bluey Wilkinson. During the 1960s and 70s, the Showground reached its peak. It was Australia's most attended speedway and often pulling in over 30,000 fans on Saturday nights. It wasn't just racing, it was entertainment. Promoter John Sherwood brought in everything from stunt shows to strippers from King's Cross as trophy girls to keep the audiences coming back, and it worked. From 1947 to 1974, the Showground hosted the Australian Speed Car Grand Prix. It returned from 1990 to 1993, and for one final time in 1996. NSW stars Ray Revell and Andy McGavin each claimed 5 victories. American Bob Two Gun Tattershaw won 4 of those times. One of the most bizarre nights came on December 28, 1975, when a naked man rolled a solo motorbike out of the pits, completed a lap, and then vanished. Later revealed to be local writer Reg McCarthy, the Speedway streaker became an unlikely cult figure because he was wearing just a helmet and racing shoes. Unfortunately, the beginning of the end would happen during the 1980-1981 season, where the regular Saturday night meetings would come to an end. Residents had begun to complain about noise and street parking. The city of Sydney enforced stricter curfews, but ironically, tests showed that the Speedway events were quieter than cricket and rugby matches in the neighboring SCG. But the damage was already done. The World Series cricket drew fans away. Meanwhile, other venues like Parramatta and Liverpool Speedway offered easier access and fewer restrictions. The roar at Moore Park began to fade. The Speedway had its last great moments in the 1990s. In April of 1996, Gary Rush, the only driver with experience from the Showground's heyday, won both the final Grand Prix and the final race, the World Derby for speed cars. 25,000 fans watched as one era ended and another began. Today, the old Speedway lies beneath Fox Studios, paved over but not erased. The outline remains, and for those who remember, so does the sound, the smell, and the speed. Alright everybody, so welcome back, and this is my new series where I go around and try to find closed dirt tracks around the United States and even other parts of the world, and basically just figure out why they closed and tell you the story behind them. And this video is going to be focused on Sunset Speedway in Omaha, Nebraska. Sunset Speedway was the creation of Albert Haddon. Al was a gearhead, and motors were his passion, along with working on cars. After a stint as a driver and builder of stock cars, he decided that he wanted to build a racetrack to the specifications that local drivers wanted. In 1954, he set his plan in motion, along with his brother, August, and by 1956, the blueprints had already been drawn up for a quarter-mile racetrack, and the location was just 2 miles west of Irvington, Nebraska, a suburb of Omaha. And the reason that it was called Sunset Speedway is because the grandstands would face to the west, providing race fans with the most beautiful sunsets every single night they raced. And on May 26, 1957, the first race was held at Sunset, and the winner was Glenn Roby, who in 2010 was still racing at the age of 79, the 8th decade in which he has raced. It became the place to be in Omaha areas on Sunday evenings for the next 44 years. First, it was the coupes and the sedans, and over time those cars were replaced by the popular late model class and supporting classes. In 1969, the track was sold to a couple of Council Bluff businessmen named Lyle Klein and Galen Brotherson, who improved the facility and added several special events. In 1972, it was the Cornhusker Hawkeye Challenge. Who can ever forget the 1977 Cornhusker Hawkeye ran on a Sunday afternoon because of being rained out the previous evening? It ended up being a race between two Iowa racing legends, Kurt Hansen and Ed Sanger. Hansen would pass Sanger on the final turn to win the race. In 1973, 2 more specials were added, the Spring Invitational and the Nebraska Triple Crown, featuring late models, modifieds, super modified / sprint cars. The Spring Invitational would be a staple at the track. And who else but Ed Sanger won the inaugural event. The Triple Crown lasted just 5 years, but we still remember the legendary Jan Opperman behind the wheel of the Speedway Motors 4X sprint car blitzing the field in the 1975 version of the race. On April 18, 1982, the World of Outlaws made their first stop at Sunset, with Steve Kinzer getting the win after Doug Wolfgang was disqualified for changing a tire on the racetrack. On July 3, 1986, the NASCAR Busch All-Star Tour made the first of many stops it would make over the years at the legendary speed plant. Fittingly, Joe Kioski would win the race. During the 1990s, Sharon and Craig Kelly would make the track into one of the finest facilities in the country, running 3 classes of cars there: late models, Grand Nationals, which are limited late models, and Pro-Ams, which are now known as street stocks. You could count on at least 30 cars in every class, and if you won the late model feature one week, it wasn't unusual for you to have to run one of the 2 B features in the next week just to make the main race. The Kellys instituted a number of innovations that helped provide for a good, timely evening of racing. They used 4-wheel drive pickup track packers to prepare the track on time, without using the race cars. Point average inversions produce better heat races and feature races. On a yellow flag, the cars were stopped and realigned and sent on their way, making for faster restarts, and had perhaps the best fire and safety crew, equipment, and safety rules in the industry. The Kellys were nominated 3 different times for the National Auto Racing Promoter of the Year award. So, if that says anything, they were really good. But it all came to an end in the October of 2000, where a final race would happen. It was a bittersweet night/day. It was a great day for racing, but would be the final event ever held at the racetrack. A week before, the area racing community had lost Dwight Reich, the son of former Sunset Speedway champion Bill Rich. I hope I said the last name right. I might have said it wrong. Was lost in a fiery crash in Iowa. As the sun began to set in the west, fans began to feel a knot in their stomachs, knowing that it would be the final time that they would see the sun set at Sunset Speedway. But why did this racetrack close? What happened after 44 years of it being open? Well, the short answer, Omaha was seeing a lot more population and there were a lot more houses being built. The primary reason for its closure was urban development. As Omaha expanded, the track became increasingly surrounded by suburban growth, leading to challenges in maintaining its operations. And eventually, like all racetracks now are facing, the issues with noise played a significant role as well. In 1998, the developers of upscale Deer Creek subdivision purchased the racetrack's property to eliminate the noise associated with its operations, which could deter potential homeowners from purchasing nearby lots. The racetrack was closed after its 2000 racing season, and the land was redeveloped for residential use. So there you have it. The reason that this racetrack was closed was because they thought that the noise from the racetrack would deter people from buying lots beside it. And that's really one of the saddest ways to go out, and that is what a lot of local racetracks are facing now. Like one of my racetracks that I go to, Montpelier Motor Speedway. They actually have a curfew set by the city of Montpelier, Indiana, because of the noise in the residential areas that were built after the racetrack was put there. That is the issue. People build a house near a racetrack, and then they complain about the noise. You might think, oh, how do you know that? Well, from what I've heard from other people, Montpelier Speedway was originally a horse racing track that was built around the 1920s. So, you get what I'm saying. Not all those houses were built before the 1920s. But enough of me yapping. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel down below if you have not already. And I will see you guys all in the next video. Comment down below a closed racetrack that you would like to see in the future. I'm out. Peace.